The largest eyes in the animal kingdom belong to the colossal squid. This creature most likely has the biggest pair of eyes that have ever existed on our planet. They measure an astonishing 11 inches across, which makes them the size of a basketball. The colossal squid needs such eyes not only to see its prey better, but also to protect itself from underwater predators. Its eyes face forward, giving the squid binocular vision. Another type of squid, called the giant squid, has its eyes placed on each side of its head. This allows the animal to see predators too, but since it lacks that binocular vision, it's not very good at estimating distances. The colossal squid, like many other squid species, has a fascinating feature called light organs, one in each eyeball. Those light organs are made of vertical lines located in the back of their eyeballs. These organs are similar to the headlights of a car. But even though the colossal squid has this really cool feature, it most likely doesn't have color vision. Most deep-sea animals don't either. But it's not like they need it much in the depths of the ocean, where it gets really dark. Humans, for example, have eyes that can only detect light at a depth of around 1,600 to 2,000 feet. Since colossal squids are found at more than 3,200 feet below the surface, they need to adapt to be able to see in almost pitch-black darkness. That's why they also have very large pupils, almost 3 inches across. It helps them collect every single particle of light in those harsh environments. Big eyes don't necessarily mean big bodies. Just ask tarsiers. They're a group of primates that have the biggest eye-to-body size ratio. Each of their eyes is just as big as their brain. You can find these golem-looking animals in Southeast Asia. Because they have such big eyes, these small animals aren't able to rotate them fully. So, they have to rely on their necks to get a better field of vision. Similar to owls, their necks can rotate about 180 degrees on each side. Tarsiers are nocturnal animals that use these quirky-looking eyes to look for prey. They don't put much effort apart from that. They just wait for their prey to approach them instead, sitting patiently in the dark. Speaking of small but effective eyes, some types of dragonfly eyes come equipped with about 28,000 lenses. That's more than any other living animal. And since their peepers cover almost their entire head, they have perfect 360-degree vision. But can an animal survive without eyelids? Most living beings have evolved to have eyelids to help protect their eyes from debris. Eyelids also help us in super bright environments or when we're exposed to high heat. Last but certainly not least, eyelids help keep eyes lubricated so that they don't dry out and lose their functions. Well, check out nocturnal geckos. They don't have eyelids, but they came up with another unique method. They have to rely on their tongues to keep their eyes lubricated and clean. They also see really well in dim light because, in the nighttime, their vision is 350 times more sensitive to color than ours. I mean, I'd certainly love to have eyes that change color every now and then, but unfortunately for me, I wasn't born an Arctic reindeer. Their eyes can switch colors depending on the season. In the summer, for example, their eyes turn gold, whilst during the colder months, they have blue eyes. These animals have adapted to this color flexibility because of their ever-changing light levels in their harsh habitat. Ever heard of a fish with 4 eyes? Its official name is anableps, and it has a special ability to see both above and below the waterline simultaneously. How come? Because its eyes are split in half by a horizontal line. Each of those half eyes comes with its own pupil and retina, which means they can act separately. This unique disposition of its eyes allows the fish to see both predators in the sky and spot insects on land. Those make up for most of its menu. Ostriches have eyes that are bigger than their brains. They also have the largest eyes out of all terrestrial animals, since they measure about 2 inches across. But if you look closely, you'll also see that ostriches have eyes with long, dense lashes. They're not really lashes though, since they're not made of hair. Those long strands are actually more related to feathers and help these huge birds with some added shade and protection against flying sand. Some of the best eyes out there are those of chameleons. They have the ability to move independently, which gives these reptiles almost 360-degree vision. The reptile can also use both monocular vision, that's when both eyes function separately, and binocular vision, when both eyes focus on the same thing. California's purple sea urchin is basically one single functioning eye. That's because the whole surface of its body is filled with photoreceptors. That makes the sea urchin sensitive to light, which means it can see in every direction. It does need to focus the light for better vision once in a while. The creature uses its spines to stop some of the light from hitting its body. Some eyes in the animal kingdom need to adapt to really hot climates, like those of camels, for example. These animals have really long lashes that help them keep away the sand. A camel's eye also features a third eyelid, but this one sweeps across from the corner of each eye. Because their environment is filled with small particles of dust, they need to clean their eyes more frequently than other species. Owls have eyes that share one great feature with those of humans. They can see in 3D, much like any other predators. Owls need this to better calculate the distance towards their prey, but here comes the problem. How do those gigantic eyes fit into the small skull of an owl? Turns out that these birds had to redesign their eye shape. An owl's eye is not a sphere, it's more elongated. The bones in the bird's skull have a special feature called a sclerotic ring. It helps support these huge eyes and holds them in place. But because of these rings, owls can't rotate their eyes, which are always looking straight ahead. Instead, they have to rely on their necks to see around. The mantis shrimp has probably the most complex eyes in the entire animal kingdom. Us humans only have 3 types of cones in our eyes. This gives us the ability to see the colors red through violet. The mantis shrimp has 16 types of cones. They might not see different colors from those we do, but they do have one of the best color recognition systems out there. These extreme color receptors allow them to react to every small change in hue really fast, avoiding predators. When you think about animals with huge unique peepers, sheep and goats aren't the first on your list, right? Don't dismiss them so quickly though, as a goat's pupils are shaped like horizontal lines. And that comes with its own purpose. Data provided by researchers point out that the pupil shape and eye orientation are related to the daily activities of each type of animal. Take bigger daytime predators like wolves, for example. Most of them have forward-facing eyes and round pupils. On the other hand, smaller animals like snakes, cats, or foxes that go and look for food both during the day and at night come with vertical slit pupils, better adapted for night vision. More vulnerable animals like horses and deer need to be constantly on their toes, so they've adapted to have wide and narrow horizontal pupils. This allows them to stretch their field of vision, which is wider than that of any other animal. Also, when they keep their head low, their eyes rotate, and they keep a watch on their surroundings.
Did you know that animals see the world differently from us? Take this. Pigeons actually have better vision than humans. Crazy, right? So let's try to see the world from the animal's eyes. Let's start with snakes. Their way of seeing the world is totally different from ours. They have special infrared-sensitive receptors in their snouts. This allows them to see the radiated heat of warm-blooded mammals. Now let's move on to cows. These big guys don't see colors as well as humans do. They can't see the color red because they don't have the necessary receptors in their retinas for that. So they only perceive variations of blue and green. Also, they don't like it when someone approaches them from behind. They have a near panoramic vision, and the only area they can't see is directly to the back. So if you're ever sneaking up on a cow, make sure you give them a heads up. Horses have a blind spot right in front of their faces because of their eye placement. This means they can't see things directly in front of them. Also, they don't see as many colors as we do. Just like cows, their world is mostly made up of greens, yellows, and blues. Poor guys. Fish eyes have ultraviolet receptors and a more spherical lens than humans. This gives them an almost 360-degree vision. As for colors, they're able to see all the same ones as we humans do. But because light behaves differently underwater, they have a hard time discerning red and its shades. Deep-sea fish can easily see in the dark, which is pretty cool. Sharks, on the other hand, can't distinguish colors at all, but they see much clearer under the water than we do. Birds have some pretty unique ways of seeing the world. Unlike humans, birds can see ultraviolet light. This helps them differentiate between males and females of their own species, as well as better navigate in their surroundings. Also, they are very good at focusing. For example, falcons and eagles can focus on a small mouse in the field up to a distance of 1 mile. A pigeon can see all the tiny details, so if you ever need to find a crack in the pavement, just ask a pigeon. And by the way, it has a 340-degree field of vision, and generally their vision is considered twice as good as a human's. There, you have it. I'm envious of a pigeon. Insects have some weird vision patterns too. Flies, for example, have thousands of little eye receptors that work together to give them a big picture of what's going on around them. And get this, they see everything in slow-mo. Plus, they can see ultraviolet light. It helps them with communication. Bees have their own problems. These guys can't tell what the color red is. To them, it looks like a dark blue. How messed up is that? Now, rats. These little guys can't see red either, but that's not the weirdest part. Either of their eyes moves on its own, so they're seeing double like all the time. It's a wonder they don't run into more walls, am I right? Cats don't see shades of red or green, but they do see brown, yellow, and blue hues like a boss. Plus, they got a wide-angle view, so they can peep more stuff on the sides than we can. There's more, though. When it's pitch black outside, cats become ninja-like and can see 6 times better than us. Their pupils adjust to any lighting like magic. Now let's talk about dogs. These furry friends can't see red or orange, but they do rock at blue and violet. Plus, they can differentiate 40 shades of gray. I mean, it's not 50, but still impressive. On a related note, frogs are really picky eaters. They won't even bother with food that isn't moving. They could be surrounded by a buffet of delicious bugs, but if they don't wiggle, frogs won't even bat an eye, and they're not the most observant creatures either. If something isn't important to them, like a shadow, they won't even bother looking at it. Chameleons have eyes that can move independently of each other, so they can see everything around them without even turning their heads. They can even see 2 images at the same time, like a double feature movie, one in front and one behind. Pretty impressive, right? What would you do if you suddenly got 360-degree vision like a chameleon? Share in the comments.
Have you ever wondered why most lawyers wear black? Same with judges. Ever thought why they always have black robes? That's because when someone wears black, it triggers something in our brain, making them appear more powerful. Maybe Coco Chanel knew that too, when she came up with the famous little black dress, which she claimed was meant for powerful women. But is black really a color? Technically not. Some people do say it is, since you need to combine various other different pigments to get it on paper. But in reality, black and white are shades, not colors. Regardless of whether it's a shade or a color, a British company claims it came up with the world's blackest black, or darkest material. Its pigment is so powerful that our eyes can't determine its shape and form. They named it Vanta Black and designed it out of carbon nanotubes. The purpose of these tiny tubes is to absorb a staggering 99.96% of all light that hits their surface. Your standard black surface, like that of your hoodie or from a nearby painting, can absorb anywhere between 95 and 98% of its surrounding light rays. It's easy to see why people describe this material as a whole. As intriguing as it is to look at, I don't think you'd look good in a garment made out of Vanta Black. That's because the shape of the human body would become invisible altogether, and you'd end up looking two-dimensional. The whitest white, however, is not human-made. We can find it in nature, and it has a lot to do with a pretty cool insect, the Cephocylus beetle. Even though it's considered a pest in Southeast Asia, its white scales can be brighter than any other white surface seen in nature. After studying the critter, scientists came up with a new type of super white coating. The substance found in it is called chitin, a chemical compound closely related to glucose that highly reflects light. A lot of the white products we can find in stores today, like sunscreen and paint, have particles in them that reflect a lot of light. But most of them have these particles in the form of titanium dioxide, or zinc oxide. Just to give you an idea of how powerful this white pigment is, imagine you have to paint one wall of your room white. If you want to have a crisp-looking wall, you might have to apply a couple of layers onto it to reach the desired hue. If you paint it with the super white coating, you only need a coat with a 10-micron thickness. That's even thinner than a strand of hair. This chemical compound isn't ready for commercial use quite yet, but once scientists have finished testing it, we might begin to see it in cosmetics or even food. The way companies choose their colors for their branding isn't just creative. It has a lot to do also with the way we perceive various colors. That's because different colors can trigger different emotions. Some companies use red for their logo because it creates a feeling of urgency. You'll see it in a lot of fast food chains. On the other hand, the color blue seems to make people chill out. It makes us feel tranquil and safe. That's why blue is a color often used in the medical industry or by car manufacturers. Same goes for the color green. You generally connect it to growth and nature, while orange makes you feel confident and enthusiastic. That's why you'll see it used by online stores. You'll see black being used by brands that want to be perceived as elegant and luxurious. Most high-end perfume or clothing brands use black logos and fonts. The list goes on, with purple being associated with royalty and wealth, and white with perfection and cleanliness. There is even a huge connection between the colors we perceive and our memory. And here's how you can test it. Say you're studying for an exam. Try making 2 sets of flashcards containing the same information. Write one in black and white, and another one using different colors. Sooner or later, you'll figure out that the colored set is more efficient. Why? Because we have better chances of remembering facts presented in colors. Our brains are wired to make all sorts of various connections. If it can relate a certain color to a piece of information, it's more likely it will get stored. You can make the same experiment by watching the same video. The first time, in black and white. Try to scribble down how many details you can remember after watching it. If you look over it a second instance, this time in color, you'll be more likely to remember the details. Next time you board a plane, try playing this little game with your friends or family. Ask everyone to be on the lookout for yellow objects on board. Other people's clothes or belongings don't count, just the airplane stuff. I'll let you in on a little secret. You won't see any. That's because most airplane companies don't use any yellow in any of their branding or decor. If you stare at the color yellow for long enough, you'll understand why. You'll soon notice it makes you dizzy. No wonder airlines, or other types of transportation companies too, shy away from yellow. It decreases the chances of people getting sick on board. Everyone has a favorite color. Try to think of yours. Chances are it's blue. Did I get it right? Don't worry, I'm not a magician. It's just statistics. Across all countries and cultures, blue is known as the most common favorite color. It probably has a lot to do with the fact that it triggers feelings of relaxation and makes us feel calm. The second most liked color is purple, while the third one is black, even though we've established that it's technically just a shade. We know Mars to be the red planet, but where did it get its hue? Mars is coated in a substance called iron oxide. We have this substance in our bodies too. It's the chemical compound that gives our blood its signature shade. You know when you've been sitting in a bright room for a while and you suddenly turn out the lights? The gray shade you see for a split second has a name: eigengrau. Some also call it brain gray. It translates to intrinsic gray, or one's shade of gray. Colors might even affect the way we taste our food. Some studies have shown that if you eat the same dish in differently colored bowls or plates, it may taste different. There was an experiment with hot chocolate. The participants were given the beverage from 4 different mugs. One was white, while the others were cream, red, and orange. They weren't told they were drinking the same substance from each cup. They were just asked to say which one was tastier. almost all participants claimed the hot chocolate from the orange and cream-colored mugs was best. When we're born, we can only perceive the world in black and white, with just a few shades of gray. We reach our full spectrum of colors at about 5 months of age. But have you ever wondered what is the first color we see? It's red. That's why a lot of toys or activity boards for newborns feature various shades of red. Dogs have even more problems distinguishing between colors, as opposed to the human eye, which can see combinations between red, blue, and yellow. A dog's eye is limited to blue and yellow shades. If you want your dog to better interact with you, stick to blue or yellow toys. The color of your car might also influence how safe you are on the streets. Studies looking at connections between accidents and car colors indicated that a white car is the safest, or the least likely to be in an accident based on the statistics. The least safe color is black, and it's easier to see why. A black car is harder to see in difficult weather conditions. Also, most roads are black too, which makes it easier for darker colored cars to blend in, and less likely to be seen in due course.
Are you a fan of comic books? You know how in many of them the story goes something like this. There is a scientist who does an experiment. And plot twist, it goes wrong. As a consequence, they gain strange powers, and eventually they either become the hero or the villain of the story. Well, what I'm trying to say is, the experiments I'll talk about now are so crazy that they could very well belong to a superhero movie. So buckle up for one wild ride through this scientific world. If only scientists knew their experiment could almost result in catastrophe. Back in 1991, one Finnish scientist introduced a species of butterfly onto one remote island to study if they could survive the new harsh environment. But before you feel sorry for the butterflies who are taken away from their homes to a totally strange place, hear this. The scientist had no clue that these innocent-looking butterflies were actually hosting a species of stomach-bursting parasitic wasp. But wait, it gets even weirder. Those parasitic wasps also carried their own, smaller, stomach-bursting hyperparasites. And they were parasitic wasps themselves, too. Once the butterflies were released on the island, the wasps erupted, spreading across the island all thanks to their hosts, creating a wasp-ocalypse, so to speak. Imagine you were living there. Well, you would have all the right to feel angry. But thankfully, the island was unoccupied. Yet again, the same species of butterfly were seen on some of the small islands in the region. So let's hope they were unoccupied too. You see, the harsh conditions didn't seem to stop the butterflies and the parasitic wasps from thriving and living their best lives. And all have managed to survive in the area even to this day. This eyebrow-raising experiment provided later scientists with a lesson to be learned. Do your research better. Never tickle a sleeping dragon. Or in the case of this crazy experiment, never bring zombies back to life. Now, before things start to sound too fictitious for you, let me quickly clarify that the zombies I'm talking about now are not the shambling, brain-hungry ones. They are actually multicellular microscopic animals called bedelloid rotifers that live in freshwater environments. Think about any immortal character in the movies, TV shows, and books, and these rotifers are probably way older than them. They have been around for about 50 million years. And as you can imagine, being able to exist for such a long time requires some solid survival skills. And thanks to other previous experiments, scientists had already known that rotifers could be frozen at -4 degrees Fahrenheit, and then revived up to 10 years later. But when they came across a group of zombie rotifers that were frozen inside Arctic permafrost for 24,000 years, they discovered something even more fascinating and jaw-dropping. Well, guess being a scientist requires having a passion for danger, because bringing them back to life wouldn't be high on my agenda if I found those zombies. But these scientists did. Once they thawed the rotifers, they not only woke up, but also went on to reproduce by creating perfect clones of themselves. In case you're wondering how that is possible, these little creatures are able to go into a suspended metabolic state known as cryptobiosis. This is almost as if they're hitting the pause button on life. they are evolved to use cryptobiosis, because most of them live in watery habitats that often freeze or dry up, and it's how they protect themselves until their conditions improve. Alexa, play Survivor by Destiny's Child. With this kind of spooky experiment, scientists are hoping to better understand cryopreservation and how it could be adapted for humans. If these scientists were witches or wizards, I bet they would pick alchemy as their elective class at Hogwarts. In this next mind-bending experiment, scientists scientifically transformed purified water into metal. And even though it was for a few fleeting seconds, this transformation allowed the liquid to conduct electricity as well. But how did they do it? Well, one thing's for sure, they didn't use the mythical philosopher's stone. So, the alkali metals of sodium and potassium were scientists' secret ingredients. When they mixed small droplets of sodium and potassium with a tiny amount of water vapor, an incredible thing happened. For a few short moments, the water transformed into a shiny golden metal. And the most fascinating part was that they saw it with their bare eyes. All this might provide scientists insight into the highly pressurized hearts of planets, where transformations like this can naturally occur. But this experiment also proves one other thing, if you ask me. It is that science really is magic. If the ice zombie didn't give you the chills, this next experiment will. So, have you ever heard about organoids? They are mini versions of organs that scientists can grow in labs using stem cells. The cool thing about these stem cells is the fact that they have the ability to turn into any type of cell in the body. So in the past, scientists had already developed tiny beating hearts and tear ducts that could cry as humans do. They had even grown mini brains that produce brain waves like those of preterm babies. But there's a new and exciting addition to the list of organoids. It is a tiny brain with its own pair of eyes called optic cups. Well, we are past sci-fi now. This is the territory of horror movies. Anyway, the researchers' process involved transforming stem cells into neural tissue first. Then they stimulated those cells with chemical signals to form tiny optic cups filled with light-sensitive cells. The optic cups appeared as early as 30 days and matured within 50 days. And the most fascinating thing about this time frame is the fact that it is similar to how the retina develops in a human embryo. The researchers created 314 mini brains in total, but not all of them formed optic cups. Only 72% did. Even though this might all sound so creepy, thanks to these organoids, scientists can gain insights into the development and function of our own brains. They can also help us understand how our visual system develops and how diseases affect the brain, and even help cure retinal disorders that cause blindness. This next experiment is fantastic. We have all been in situations where we feel like a fish out of water. But one scientist took that saying literally. He wanted to see whether fish could find their way like they do in the ocean in a totally new environment. So he placed goldfish in cars. Well, fish-operated tanks to be exact, aka a plastic aquarium mounted on a small platform with wheels. These tanks also had a camera on top that could track their movements. Whenever the fish swam in a specific direction, the car would move in that same direction as well. But as you can imagine, making a fish drive was no easy task. He first trained the fishies to associate certain actions with specific rewards. For example, if they could successfully move the car, they got a delicious treat. Next, he taught them to make sense of the environment around the water vehicles they were in by placing obstacles. And to his surprise, it was only after a couple of days that the fish adjusted to changes in their surroundings perfectly. Don't get too excited though. This doesn't mean you might have a goldfish Uber driver sometime soon. There's a new mutant spider in town. There's a new mutant spider in town! In our last experiment, a group of scientists genetically modified a species of spider and created its short-legged version. To do that, they first had to map the entire genome of the species. Then they isolated the long legs gene and turned it off in developing embryos, which created individual arachnids with shorter, deformed legs. The researchers are hoping this experiment will help them reveal the secrets of the spider's body, as well as its unique method of locomotion, which is walking with 3 pairs of legs and waving the longest pair about to feel its way around.
When astronauts come back to Earth from space, they're usually a couple of inches taller than they were before leaving our planet. Your body acts in an unusual way when you free it from gravity. Without your entire weight that compresses the cartilage in your spine and joints, your body gets a bit longer in zero-gravity conditions. But this doesn't last forever. The effect goes away after some time. A similar thing happens on Earth too. When you lie down for a good night's sleep, you get a bit taller, no more than 0.4 inches, but still. That's why you're taller in the morning than you are at the end of the day. There's a weird-looking mushroom with teeth that looks as if it's bleeding. No wonder it's called the bleeding tooth fungus. There are also creepy tooth-like spines under its cap. The mushroom isn't very delicious. It tastes like a very bitter pepper. The world's tallest tropical tree reaches 330 feet and weighs more than 180,000 pounds, which is about the weight of the average passenger airplane. It grows on the island of Borneo in Malaysia. The view from the top of this tree is astonishing. That's something a local climber discovered when he scaled the tree to measure it properly. It seems that the oldest known star might be older than the universe itself. It's called Methuselah, and it's located 190 light-years away from our planet in the constellation of Libra. Analyzing the formation about its brightness, size, structure, and composition, scientists realize the star was probably about 14.5 billion years old. There could be 800 million years of difference between the real age of the star and the age their research showed. But if the star is really older than the universe, it might mean that the Big Bang could not be the moment when it all started. The smallest mammal in the world is this tiny, cute animal called the bumblebee bat. Its nose has a pig-like snout, and it has tiny, barely visible eyes. These creatures only grow to be over an inch long, with a wingspan of about 7 inches. Your nose, toes, hands, and many other body parts can freeze, but eyeballs easily deal with the cold, even if you leave them completely unprotected. When people put on goggles or glasses, it's mostly to protect their eyes from wind or snow glare, not from the cold, no matter how low temperatures are. The thing is that unlike other parts of your body, your eyes get supplies of warm blood at all times, even in the coldest surroundings. They are filled with many blood vessels that constantly heat them up. Also, they're placed deep in your head, where fat, tissue, and bones help keep them warm. It's almost impossible for the eyes to freeze as long as the rest of the body functions. There are 3 reasons why curly hair is, well, curly. First, the follicle from which the curly strand of hair grows has an oval shape, unlike the circular follicle that produces straight hair. Number 2, a curly hair strand exits the surface of the skin at more of an angle if you compare it to a straight hair, which makes it curve as it grows. And finally, the shape of curly hair helps form the chemical bonds between protein molecules in a single strand, which makes the hair even curlier. The famous Leaning Tower of Pisa is tilted because of the soft soil under the building's base. It was probably frustrating for the people who constructed it. But the soft soil was also partially something that could protect the tower from potential earthquakes. Because of the soil and its height, the tower doesn't resonate with earthquake vibrations. So, the reason why the tower is tilted is also the same reason why it's still standing. Giant squids have the biggest eyes you can find on Earth. They are 11 inches across, which is larger than a dinner plate. The lens is as big as an orange. Giant squids' eyeballs are filled with water. Giant squids are pretty big and can grow up to 43 feet. Are you a fan of chocolate but would like to start eating healthier and replace it with fruit? Then you'll be happy to know there's a fruit that tastes similar to chocolate pudding. It's called black sapote. It's a species of persimmon native to South and Central America. When the fruit is ripe, munching on it is like eating sweet custard with a hint of chocolate. When you find an old book or newspaper, you're likely to see that the paper has turned yellow. Paper is made from wood, which mostly consists of white cellulose. Wood contains lignin too. That's a dark substance that also ends up in the paper. Together with the cellulose, lignin is like a glue that binds the cellulose together, making trees stand upright, and generally makes wood stiff.
When you expose lignin to sunlight and air, paper turns yellow. Light travels way faster than sound waves. The speed of light is the maximum speed at which some information can travel from one place to another. Light travels through a vacuum at speed nothing can really beat, especially not sound, which doesn't even exist in a vacuum. When museums don't allow you to take pictures, they're mostly concerned that the camera flashes can ruin paintings and damage their pigments. Some pigments are more sensitive to light. That means that chemical reactions that break pigments down speed up when these pigments get exposed to light. That's why the lighting in galleries and museums is so carefully controlled. At the same time, there's no evidence modern camera phones can cause any damage to paintings. After all, they're more advanced than they used to be. They use red lights inside submarines because human eyes are less sensitive to longer wavelengths. Submarines switch to red light when it's too dark outside, and crew members need to go on watch duty or use the periscope. The red light helps them to adjust their vision. The same technology is used in planetariums, some movie theaters, airport control towers. They all use red light to make it easier for viewers to adjust from light to dark. Moths simply can't help themselves. Light attracts them, which in most cases ends up fatally. But no one is sure why it happens. Certain kinds of moths use natural light to orient themselves when it's dark outside. Another theory says moths head towards the light to run away from bigger animals chasing them. Once they're too close to a bright light, they most likely get blinded and can't figure out their position. Also, they might get confused by an optical illusion that make it look as if there are safe, dark areas next to the light's edge. One more theory says male moths mistake the scent and heat of candles for females. Tree rings can tell you how old a tree is. But these rings also get wider during wet periods, which is how they can inform you about the weather conditions in a given year. When the rings are thicker, it means the year was mostly raining, and when they're thin, you know the period was dry. When you're in cold water, it feels much worse than when you're exposed to air of the same temperature, all because it takes more energy to raise the temperature of water than air. So, the layer of water that surrounds your body heats up pretty slowly, and the temperature difference between your body and the water remains pretty big. That's why the rate of heat loss stays high. Neoprene wetsuits divers wear can keep you relatively warm when you're in the water. Their pores are fine enough to hold the water surrounding you relatively still. The sky is blue because sunlight gets scattered after it strikes the molecules of air in the planet's atmosphere. As for sunlight, it consists of all the colors of the rainbow.
The tuatara is a reptile that has a third eye on top of its head. The eye has a retina, nerve connections, and a lens, but isn't used for seeing, as during growth it quickly becomes covered by scales. Scientists are still trying to find the eye's mysterious function. There's only one letter that doesn't appear in the name of any of the 50 U.S. states. There's a Z in Arizona, and even 2 pesky X's in New Mexico and Texas. But search a map and you won't find a single Q in any U.S. state name. It's estimated that a total of 108 billion people have lived on Earth throughout its history. Ever wondered what that tiny pocket in your jeans is for? It's a watch pocket and was originally intended as a place to store pocket watches. It dates back to 1879 as a new feature on a pair of Levi's jeans. Over 3 billion pounds of potatoes are used to make McDonald's fries every year, which is around 15% of all the potatoes grown in America in 2020. Unlike humans, cats don't have the same amount of toes on their front and back paws. They usually have 5 toes on their front paws, but only 4 on their back ones. If you've got a feline companion, go take a look. The entire population of Earth could fit inside Los Angeles. With the world's population being 7.5 billion, this seems crazy. But if everyone stood shoulder to shoulder, we could all fit inside 500 square miles. Pigs aren't the only animals that are great at finding truffles. Dogs are just as good thanks to their sense of smell and are now used more commonly. The current American flag was designed by a high school student. Bob Heff designed the flag for his history class in 1958 and was only given a B- for his efforts. Later, his design was chosen out of more than 1,500 others to become the new flag. His grade was unsurprisingly changed to an A after this. The pandas in your local zoo may look at home, but unless you're in China, they're just on vacation. That's because technically all pandas are on loan from China and are the property of that country. The sentence, "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog," uses every letter in the English language. In 1974, a full NASA spacesuit cost between $15 and $22 million. But over time, NASA hasn't replaced worn-out suits, leading to them only having 4 working EVA suits left. But have no fear, since 2009, NASA has been working to upgrade their outside-the-spaceship wardrobe with an investment of $200 million. Does that come with sequins? Hot water actually may freeze faster than cold water. This is because the cooled water at the bottom is denser than the hot water at the top, and this uneven temperature distribution speeds up the cooling process. In a 12-hour period, it's likely that an ant will only take 8 minutes of rest. They're really switching up the definition of a power nap. Camels have 3 sets of eyelids and 2 rows of eyelashes to protect them from the blowing sands of the desert. The letter X was first used to represent a kiss all the way back in 1763. It was first used in a letter written by British naturalist Gilbert White. No one actually knows if we're spelling William Shakespeare correctly, and it looks like the man himself wasn't too sure either. He signed his name in a number of ways. But it turned out he never signed anything as William Shakespeare, despite it being the accepted spelling today. The word swims still looks the same even when turned upside down, like that. A tiny percentage of the static that you see on old TV screens is residual radiation left over from the Big Bang. If you were to lift up the tail of a kangaroo, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, the animal would no longer be able to hop. Kangaroos use their tails as a third leg to propel them forward and also to keep balance. So basically, they'd fall over. If you're heading to London to see the famous London Bridge, think again, as the original bridge is now in Arizona. By the 1960s, London Bridge was falling down. Really? And so the city decided to sell it to an American oil tycoon, Robert P. McCullough. It was disassembled, each piece labeled, shipped over to the U.S., and reassembled. It can now be found in Lake Havasu City. Movie trailers, those teasers of upcoming movies shown before the main feature, were originally shown after the movie, which is why they're called trailers. Oh. You don't have to worry about a crocodile mocking you, as they can't actually stick out their tongues. Crocs have a membrane in their mouth which prevents the tongue from moving. English is the most widely spoken language in the world, but 4 times more people speak it as a second language than as their mother tongue. Speaking of England, the crown jewels contain 2 of the largest cut diamonds of all time. The Cullinan diamond is the largest diamond ever found and is part of the sovereign's scepter with cross. The second gem is the aptly named Cullinan II, which is mounted in the impressive imperial state crown. So now you know. Every glass of water you drink probably contains water molecules that have also been drunk by a dinosaur. The dinosaurs were around for 186 million years, compared to humanity's 200,000, giving them a lot more time to drink Earth's water than us. Huge diamonds could be raining down on Jupiter and Saturn as you watch this video. That's because lightning storms turn methane into carbon, which gradually hardens as it falls and turns into diamonds. Beneath the Easter Island heads, they actually have hidden bodies. In the 1900s, archaeologists dug up 2 of the statues to find full torsos measuring 30 feet. The torso was 30 feet long, not that the statue had 30 feet. That would be weird. Next time you're struggling to concentrate when studying, try reaching for a stick of gum. A study found that participants who chewed gum while taking a memory test could stay focused longer than those who didn't. Now, common sense would suggest that trees have been around before most animals, as they produce oxygen for us to breathe. If you were to tell this to a shark, it would laugh, as the sea creatures were actually around long before trees. Sharks date back around 400 million years, with trees coming in about 50 million years later. Yeah, I want to see a shark laugh. Listen closely next time you turn on the hot and cold water taps, as water actually makes different pouring sounds depending on its temperature. The heat changes the thickness of the water, which changes the pitch of the sound it makes when it's poured. There may be a new suspect to add to police lineups, and that suspect is a koala bear. While gorillas and chimps have fingerprints similar to humans, so does the cuddly koala. The Comic Sans font has divided people across the world for decades, and has developed a reputation for being informal or unprofessional. This makes perfect sense given its creation, as designer Vincent Conner looked to his favorite comic books like Watchmen for inspiration. Think of the first thing that comes to your head when Transylvania is brought up. It's vampires, right? But Dracula's author Bram Stoker never actually visited the mountainous region of Romania, which cemented Transylvania in the legend of the vampire forever. The first college football game took place as far back as 1869 and was between Rutgers and Princeton. Rutgers won the game 6-4. If you're looking for a bodyguard from the animal kingdom, look no further. The silverback gorilla can lift up to 10 times its own body weight, which translates to a total of around 1,800 pounds. This makes them one of the strongest living mammals on Earth. Ever wondered how a city gets named? In Portland, it came down to a coin flip. If the coin had landed the other way around, we'd be calling it Boston, Oregon. Iceland is growing 2 inches every year. This is because it's divided by the North American and European tectonic plates. So as the plates push wider apart, the bigger Iceland gets. The average person will spend a whopping 6 months of their life waiting for red traffic lights to turn green. Poor yellow isn't even mentioned. Humans are the only animals with chins. While other animals, like the chimpanzee, share similarities with humans, like walking on 2 legs or having a jaw, none actually have that little bit of bone in the middle of the lower jaw. So hey, when you're feeling down, chin up.
If you're being approached by an aggressively looking dog, start yelling and screaming. It'll show your dominance and spook the animal off. Yes, this is a widespread myth, and no, it won't help you if you meet a canine that looks as if it's going to attack you. The best course of action in this rather scary situation is to stand still and avoid direct eye contact with the animal. You shouldn't run. It may only encourage the dog to start chasing you. If the animal attacks, drop to the ground and curl into a ball, protecting your head and neck with your hands. But what if you come across another, much more dangerous representative of the canine family? A wolf? Running away won't save your life. Wolves are much faster than humans, especially in the forest. Plus, as soon as you start running, the wolf's prey drive will immediately kick in. Instead, maintain eye contact with the animal at all times and never ever turn your back on it. While trying to escape, make sure the wolf remains in front of you. If the predator ends up behind you, its hunting instincts may come into play, so slowly back away while facing the animal. You might have heard that if you've been bitten by a snake, you should apply garlic to the bite area. Another misconception. Garlic has absolutely no effect on snake venom. Instead, try to remember the color and shape of the snake. It can later help doctors treat the bite and figure out what anti-venom is needed. Also, remain still and as calm as possible. It can slow down the spread of venom. And, of course, immediately seek medical help. If you see a bear, fall down on the ground and pretend to have passed away. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work this way. First of all, you need to show the animal that you're not prey. Do not make any high-pitched noises and don't scream. This way, you may agitate the bear even more. If you wave your arms, do it slowly. If you decide to talk some sense into the bear, do it in a calm and low voice. Without taking your eyes off the bear, start to move sideways. It won't let you trip and go down. Do not rush or run away. Although at first sight, bears may look clumsy and heavy-footed, they're surprisingly good runners. Plus, these animals love chasing their prey. That's why if a bear charges after you, stop moving altogether. There's a misconception that bees can only sting once. But in reality, the problem is that honeybee stingers are barbed and can easily catch on their victim's skin. The stinger gets stuck. The bee can't free itself and doesn't usually survive such an accident. You need to remember that bees will protect their hives no matter what. And they can sting you even if you're just walking by. Dark colors can make bees more aggressive, since such hues make people look like their natural enemies. That's why if you're dressed in a black t-shirt, your chances of being stung by these insects are higher. If a swarm of bees is following you, hide in an enclosed or dark space. The lack of proper lighting will throw the insects off your track. Similar rules apply to wasp encounters. One of the worst mistakes you can make is wearing your long hair down and wearing dark clothes. Wasps are attracted to dark moving objects, and your clothes and hair certainly fit this description. So if you suspect you may come across some wasps, put on some light-colored clothes and keep your hair tied up in a ponytail or bun. Contrary to popular belief, bathing a wasp sting in vinegar or baking soda won't help. Instead, apply some ice to the affected area. Gorillas are called the kings of the jungle, and not without a reason. They are leaders that tend to protect their family and land. They won't normally attack you if you behave obediently. So, upon meeting a gorilla, sit down. This way, you won't look large and threatening, towering over the animal. Try not to make loud noises and avoid direct eye contact. In case of an attack or approach, curl into a ball. Gorillas are proud animals. As a rule, they won't attack the weak and defenseless. Surprisingly, a wild kangaroo can pose a serious threat to a person. But it will only happen if you enter the animal's territory and it feels threatened. To avoid a conflict, cough. It's not a joke. Your coughs should be short and quiet. The kangaroo will consider it a sign of disease, and there's a chance it won't attack you. After that, back away slowly. This way, you will look smaller, therefore less threatening. Don't turn away and run. It will only provoke the animal. Remember that kangaroos are perfect jumpers, capable of catching up with you in a few moments. Of course, we must talk about sharks. The good news is that out of several hundred shark species existing on Earth, only about a dozen attack humans. If a shark gets interested in you, it will be extremely hard to break away. To not attract sharks, prevent blood or any other body fluids from getting into the water. Sharks can feel smells at great distances. Also, when you go swimming, take off shiny jewelry or other reflective objects. Sharks are attracted to shiny things because they mistake them for fish scales. Don't turn your back on this predator, and don't try to escape in panic. You will look like prey this way. Move slowly. Hitting the animal in its eyes and gills can only make it angrier and more determined to attack. Instead, start making bubbles. They're too noisy for sharks, and these animals don't like them. If you encounter a wild boar, it'll be a mistake to try to escape the animal by jumping into the water. Boars are actually good swimmers and can easily follow you if they feel threatened. Instead, start whistling or singing if you spot a wild boar walking nearby. If you've encountered a lion, maintain eye contact with the animal. Don't turn your back and don't move your eyes away. It will give the predator some time to attack. Try to look more massive than you actually are. Lift your arms and jack it up. If you look big and threatening, the animal will try to avoid the confrontation. Speak to the lion in a reasonably loud and confident voice. Such behavior isn't typical for a victim. You will baffle the predator, and it will perceive you as an irritating presence, which is better to stay away from. Elephants are clever and quite friendly animals, but they have been known to attack people. This is especially true about female elephant mothers with babies. If you have come across an elephant, pay attention to its body language. If the trunk is curled and the ears are pulled back, it means it might try to attack and crush you. If the animal approaches, don't run. Try to find something to serve as a barrier between you and the elephant. It can be a stone or a tree. Rhinoceroses have bad eyesight. That's why it's easy to frighten them and provoke them to attack. These animals' speed can reach 37 miles per hour, which is why it's really difficult to outrun them. The most foolproof way to escape from a rhinoceros is to hide behind a tree. It's a serious obstacle for the animal. Also, it's unlikely to follow you through bushes or high grass. Hippos may seem cute, but this image is very misleading. These animals can be extremely dangerous. Despite their weight, hippopotamuses can run at a speed of 18 to 28 miles per hour. Plus, it's quite easy to make them angry. So if the weather's hot, try not to come close to bushes. The level of water lowers during the drought season, and hippos hide in tall grass. To make the animal leave you alone, climb a tree, a rock, or a steep hill. Wait there until it goes away. Despite the widespread opinion, bulls react to movement, not the color red, or any other color. That's why if a bull is running at you, stay straight and still. Use your hat, t-shirt, or other clothes you have at hand as bait. When the bull runs up close enough, throw this object as far away from you as possible. The bull will change the direction and follow this new target. Every species on Earth, you, me, and that nasty neighbor of yours, is destined to go extinct someday. Just like what happened to the woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers. Stats aren't bright. Scientists say that 99% of all animals that ever lived are now extinct. Hey, what's that look on your face? Going extinct is not the end of the story. Now listen up. Mammoths might make the greatest comeback ever and even be the key to saving humanity. Nope, they won't give away free money so that we don't have to work anymore, but they can sorta help the weather situation on our planet. In the Arctic tundra, there's this ground called permafrost. It's like soil in the form of ice. Soil turns permafrost when it stays super cold for 2 years straight. But now, permafrost is actively thawing out, and it's bad news for, well, everyone. Because while thawing, it releases a lot of carbon into the air. But what if we had large animals like mammoths there today? They would churn up the soil. The ground would freeze more deeply in winter. And then, in summer, a layer of grass would help keep the ground cool and prevent the permafrost from melting. Some scientists think that's a great solution. So now there's a company in the US that's trying to bring mammoths back to life. Okay, you got me. Not actual mammoths, but a sort of hybrid between an elephant and 1% mammoth DNA. It would be a northern elephant. Getting mammoth DNA is easier than you might think. They actually only went extinct about 10 to 14,000 years ago. Scientists are hoping to have their first elephant-mammoth hybrid by 2027. Let's hope it doesn't turn into a real-life Jurassic Park. Ah, Australia. A nightmarish place and a home to the most fascinating creatures on Earth. But here, the sad fate befell the Tasmanian tiger, also known as thylacine. Don't mix it up with the Tasmanian devil. That one is living and thriving. Nope, the thylacine was a marsupial predator that used to chill in Australia, South Tasmania, and New Guinea. It was a nocturnal who preyed on other marsupials, like kangaroos. In the 30s, the farmers suddenly claimed that thylacines were eating their livestock. Looking back at it now, that was probably an exaggeration. But humans started to hunt poor thylacines until they were all gone. And then it turned out that hunting away the important predator isn't the brightest idea. Who would have thought? You see, thylacines kept things in check by eating bad animals. So once they disappeared, the Australian wildlife was basically doomed. 35% of total mammal extinctions on Earth happened here. That's an awful world record. I know it sounds gloomy, but hey, maybe we can fix this. Remember that company we mentioned? It wants to bring back the thylacine too. Luckily, many thylacine embryos are still preserved in jars, like some creepy pickles. If we bring them back to Tasmania, this could help revive the entire ecosystem. Would you be happy to see them back in the wild? Me too. And I would also be happy to see you hitting those like and subscribe buttons so you can keep up with amazing facts all year round. We also have some huge dreams about tiny creatures. Take a trip to Mount Hotham Ski Resort in Victoria, Australia, and here you can find the mountain pygmy possum, a tiny bundle of cuteness. These guys are super rare. We even thought that they were extinct. All we had was their fossils. But then, some skiers spotted a possum in a log pile at the ski lodge in 1966. Imagine suddenly making a great discovery while chilling on vacation. These little possums can spend 7 months of the year sleeping under the snow. They wake up occasionally to eat some stored food, and then they wake up in the spring to eat even more, find a mate, and go back to sleep again. What a relatable fella. Since they've made it into this video, you can guess they're pretty endangered. There are less than 2,000 left in the wild, all because their current homes don't fit them that well. But hooray, we can help them too. You see, their ancestors lived in lowland forests about 20 million years ago. So maybe mountain possums could live better if we moved them there? Of course, we can't just take them to the woods and expect them to survive. Instead, scientists want to slowly release possums into the forest and check up on how they get on with it. Let's hope these cute creatures will adapt to woodland life. The southern gastric brooding frog, also called the platypus frog, was quite a unique creature. It was discovered in 1972 in Queensland, Australia. Back then, this fella shocked the scientists with its super weird birthing practices. Check this out. The mother frog swallows her eggs, turning her stomach into the womb. Then she doesn't eat at all for 6 weeks straight. I could never. Meanwhile, the tadpoles hatch in her stomach, start to grow, and eventually get so big that the mom literally has to breathe through her skin. And then she literally spews out her offspring left and right. Bleh. But this insane process is a great evolutionary achievement, which is why it drew everyone's attention. But the wonder didn't last long. By the mid-80s, all known species of these frogs vanished from their natural habitats. Why? We have no idea. There are many theories, but almost no evidence to back them up. In any case, over the years, these guys officially became extinct. But it all changed in 2013. Scientists started a groundbreaking project named the Lazarus Project. Now they want to resurrect these frogs to learn cool cloning techniques from them. Are you guys ready to copy their genetic preservation method? Yeah, me neither. But let's dive deeper. Literally go in the water. Meet the coelacanth. This creature lived in the oceans back when the dinosaurs roamed our planet, and didn't even notice the asteroids. These guys are the Methuselahs of the sea. They can live up to 100 years, and they don't even start thinking about leaving offspring until they're around 55. At least they've got plenty of time to live for themselves. We actually thought this creature had gone extinct about 65 million years ago. But then, the first Latimeria specimen was discovered off the coast of South Africa in 1938. Now they're known as living fossils. And these fish are enormous. They weigh around 200 pounds. They're also super stylish, with those lobe-fished paddles that make them look like disco balls. Oh, and they're great aerialists. Thanks to those versatile fins, they can even do headstands and swim belly up. The coelacanth is also a bit of a homebody. It's not very energetic, and likes to live in underwater caves during the day, only coming out at night to snack on smaller fish and squid. Another animal who's literally me. Now we're trying our best to preserve this species, and I won't be surprised if it outlives us all. And finally, let's talk about the largest and most awkwardly looking flightless bird from New Zealand, the South Island takahe. The tale of the takahe started way back in the Middle Ages. Humans accidentally hunted them all away, and by the late 19th century, it seemed there were none of them left. But then, they were rediscovered in New Zealand in 1948. Poor guys did all they could to hide from us in the mountains, but we still got them. But it's different now. Since then, we've been trying our best to save them from extinction. There's a takahe recovery program going on, and it shows great results. They managed to greatly boost the number of birds in the wild. As of 2023, the takahe population has grown to around 500 birds. They're now considered nationally vulnerable, not nationally critical. It's a little progress, but progress nonetheless. Let's keep it up.
A new day begins in a metropolis. The streets are filled with car beeps, people's voices, music, and by the afternoon, it's all replaced by screaming. That day, people experienced the biggest and most massive fright in humanity's history. You work as a psychologist and help people solve internal problems. Your method is to observe a person, not to listen to them. They come to you and talk about their problems, but you watch their movements, how their voice changes, and what happens to their eyes. You see a patient look away, which means they feel ashamed. You can see their pupils dilate and know they're excited. The eyes tell you everything you need to know. One day, a girl comes to you. She sits down in a chair and talks about her family issues. You look into her eyes and freeze. Fear permeates your body and sweat drips down your face. You see nothing in her eyes. They're completely dark. Her irises are brown. Against the background of the white sclera, you could see the eye moving. Now, the dark iris, black sclera, and black pupil are blended together. You don't understand what she's looking at and what emotion she's experiencing. You're afraid, but try to seem calm. After a second, the girl squeaks in terror and slaps her hands over her mouth. She's asking about your eyes. You run off to the bathroom to look in the mirror. You want to scream because your eyes are black too. You look closely and see the iris and pupil, but the sclera, which is the largest part of the eye, is completely black. The girl nervously apologizes and hurries out of the office, and you cancel all appointments for today. People walk quickly through the streets with their heads down, bumping into each other but saying nothing. No one dares to look into the eyes of another person. Lots of TV shows and public events have been canceled. Models, superstars, and everyone you like are now scaring you. The next day, the panic subsides and people try to understand the situation. It turns out that no one's eye color has changed. It's just the sclera that has turned black. This creates a merge effect. Even if you have green or brown eyes, your iris still merges with the sclera. The movements of your eyes become difficult to distinguish. Thanks to the white sclera, we can follow other people's gaze direction. When you make eye contact with someone, you immediately make a nonverbal connection. But now, this connection has faltered. We can no longer read the thousands of shades and nuances of different emotions. Imagine you met a bear in the forest. You won't be able to tell the level of aggression or fear just looking at its eyes. Will it attack you or run away? In the same way, you won't be able to understand what mood the person you're talking to is in. Yeah, it's true that a person can express emotions with a smile, a frown, or a wrinkled nose. But all these facial expressions can confuse you when you don't understand what's happening in a person's eyes. A big guy walks past you. He looks sullen and displeased. You look into his black eyes and see him looking directly at you. Frightened, you dodge him and increase your pace. But it turns out the man wasn't even looking in your direction. People's smiles will seem all the same. A villain smile, a smile of joy, a shy smile, they all look creepy with black eyes. The lack of eye contact creates conflicts and misunderstandings among people. Life becomes as if all people walked around wearing black sunglasses. You can sit in a bus and look straight at anyone without fearing that your gaze will be noticed. On the flip side, anyone can look back at you none the wiser. It's kind of fun at first, but over time, you realize that you're missing eye contact with other people. You miss the times when you could spend hours with your loved one and understand them without words. You need to look carefully at the person's face to distinguish the movements of their eyes. This is a very personal and sensitive process. Not everyone is willing to let a stranger stare at you from a close distance for so long. Visual sessions are gaining in popularity. A group of people enters a spacious hall and breaks up into pairs. People look at each other for hours and thus make up for the lack of visual nonverbal communication. Eye lens companies are flourishing since millions of people buy their products now. You put on a spherical lens and the sclera turns white. But wearing these lenses is uncomfortable. The lens must cover the inside of the eye to simulate the white color. It's causing discomfort and damaging your eyesight. Scientists quickly find a way to fix this. Some lenses turn the iris white instead. Now, when a white eye with a black pupil appears against the background of the black sclera, it becomes easy for you to communicate again. But now, all people have the same white eyes, and it's creepy. It's like robots in human form walking the streets. Some people decide to wear such lenses, while others are left with black sclera. People with blue irises become the most understandable personalities. This color stands out perfectly against the black background. When you talk to such a person, you catch their gaze, follow the movement of the iris, and understand their emotions. The rest of the people distance themselves from each other due to a lack of nonverbal communication. People spend even more time on social networks to communicate. Through filters, they return their eyes to their former appearance in photos and videos. During a video call, you understand the other person better than in real life. Mobile device developers create digital glasses. You've bought a pair for yourself and try them on. Several tiny cameras and sensors scan your dark eyes. When you look at someone with such glasses, their sclera looks white to you, since the glasses lens is a digital screen that colors the eyes. As more time passes, people generally stop paying attention to eye contact. Body language and intonations become the best indicators of mood. Your eyes are now fixed on the other person's hands, and your ears detect the smallest changes in their speech. The movements of their body, fingers, and feet allow you to understand what the person is feeling. Thanks to modern technologies and civilized society, people manage to cope with the changes. But if the black sclera had appeared thousands of years ago, humanity probably would not have survived. Just imagine that you're going with your tribe to hunt a mammoth or a wild boar. You must be quiet and still. With the white sclera, you can use your gaze to signal your companions to attack. But when all your eyes are black, you don't know if a person is looking at you or not. The confusion begins. Someone rushes out of cover ahead of time. The mammoth runs away. The hunt has failed. The tribe remains hungry. Without language, you can't agree on anything with the leader of another tribe. It's difficult to establish a friendly relationship if you don't see approval in the other person's eyes. Without social norms and rules, without a common language and the internet, people would not be able to establish contact with each other. They can't unite into big communes, and without community, there's no progress. The fate of the human race hangs in the balance. Most animals are guided by sound and smell when communicating with each other. Maybe evolution would have developed the sense of smell and hearing in humans. In this case, the concept of fashion and beauty would have changed. Body odor, perfume, and voice pitch would have become more important than appearance and shape. Now, with the help of plastic surgery, you can change your look. In a world where your voice is more important than your eyes, doctors can perform surgeries to change how you sound. You catch the subtlest sense of other people and do everything to make your smell feel perfect. Operations are performed on the sweat glands. With the help of special microfilters, you can choose your odor. Now, after a run, you can smell like grapefruit or wet asphalt.